you might get a message saying accept being a contributor, and that way you can talk to us if you need to. John, all right. If you don't know, we are being recorded. We're recording this session. There's going to be about 6 people that said that they can't make it. And I apologize for not being more explicit on the message that I sent out about the change in the meeting date. But Dave can go into it more if he wants. But Dave, we had to change the date. Dave had something come up, and it was kind of a last minute notice. But it looks like we have a great attendance. There's 41 people or so right now. So, John. So, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you to start the meeting.
Excellent. Well, everyone, thank you for joining. Happy New Year. It's kind of a whirlwind holiday season, and I'm learning as life throws you curveballs, you got to have some flexibility. I really appreciate everybody's flexibility on changing the dates. I'm also discovering, as I dig into all the new bills of that we passed in federal government and Minnesota and stuff, that there's a lot more training to be done than we originally thought. And as we get into the whole no tax on tips and all those things, it's going to take some extra effort this year. So we're going to have you do some homework and have some in-person training on this. So today's intent is to really bring you up to speed on where everything is. I know some of you are way ahead, some are just scratching the surface. So bear with me today. If we get into too many deep questions, I'm going to hold them off. We're not going to debate or try to get into too much detail on how we're going to track overtime or something like that. So just hang with us until we get everybody on the same page. And then I'll give you the plan for homework and then follow-up training as we go. Let me give you the agenda for today. First, just the welcome. I'm going to cover some tax updates. I'm going to go back in time a little bit to 2024 and talk about what was in place and what's going to go away. And then also talk about all the new stuff that's coming. I do want to spend some time walking you through what's available online. They've really ramped up what's happening online, both from a Minnesota point of view and a federal point of view. But the key word is online. Less and less is in your workbook, and more is online. So as we go through that, we'll talk through that. I'm going to spend some time in the certification process because Lincoln Learn changed a little bit. And some of the questions I'm getting on how to get to a test site or things like that, I can walk you through that real quick. And then the last bullet will be upcoming training. I've got a break built in this morning, but some housekeeping items first before I get into all the stuff here. I've got Norlin and Phyllis watching the chat box. So if you have a question as we go along, either raise that hand button or put it in the chat. I cannot see from as I'm presenting, I won't be able to see that, but Phyllis and Norlin will be watching for that. And they'll stop me as they need to I'd rather answer the questions as we go rather than wait to the very end of a topic or something. So don't be bashful, which I know you guys aren't. And then at the end, I will be sending out homework and stuff. So bear with me on that. So on that, let's say, welcome back. I hope you dust off your memory banks a little bit and your Chromebooks are waking up. It's when you're in this training role, and not to discourage you from being a training coordinator, but you got to do this stuff back in November. So my memory banks have been dusted and kind of erased already. So, but thanks though for those who filled out the survey and the training topics. It helps us to know where to focus and what you need to do and where you're getting some help. You haven't filled it out or didn't know where the survey was, let me know, or I can send you a note where that survey is just so we can track the questions you may have. Again, I alluded to the fact there's many improvements to the workbook. I sat in sessions after last year. Remember, we had Minnesota's printed out here, and there was workbook pages scattered here and there and everywhere, and it was broken up. They finally said, okay, enough of that. We're going to put all the problems together and kind of keep it simple. But the pressure on printing online or printing paper and sending it out creates 2 problems. 1, they get outdated instantly, and then 2, it's expensive, and they're trying to cut costs and put money into other areas. So you'll see that more and more is out there online. I was surprised how strong the self-study process is getting. It's really, really good. You could pick it up and dive into it anywhere, and I'll give you a little walkthrough on that. But it's nice when you want to have a question like a Medicaid waiver, or I want to refresh myself on QCDs or something. I can go out there and find that exact problem or that exact video and watch it, and I'm up to speed. Phyllis and Jim and people working on Minnesota, Norlin, amazing the videos they're creating. It's for some reason my memory banks always forget Minnesota stuff first before the federal. I don't know why that is, but when I think about the rents that do have duplicate months, or I have a nursing home candidate or something, I always say, oh crud, what is that? I can go out there and find my videos right away and refresh, and it's really good. So a big thanks to Phyllis and Jim and Norlin on that website we have. It's popular across the state, and it's a great resource point. As a question I know somebody may ask you today, state of Minnesota is still not available in TaxSlayer, so we're going to be scrambling a little bit when we try to get our problems done and everything else, but we're hopeful that it comes pretty soon. And let's see, anything else on the welcome? I think that's got it. So let's go in. Let's get started on some of the tax. I'm going to walk through a couple things from last year, and just to kind of give you a remember. Now, remember the 1099-Ks, there was a whole path we're on, the government was on to start really capturing all that income. And they are on a method that this year would drop down to 2,500, and 2026 they're going down to 600. And we're going to get all that income. Well, scratch that. We're going back to the old days. It's going back to $20,000 is the required level in 200 transactions. That's the threshold. On the training at National, they did comment, though most companies, I'm thinking like Uber and Lyft and those companies, and maybe Grubhub and stuff, they're already on the path to send out and to adhere to those requirements originally set. So we may still see a lot of those coming, but there is not a requirement now to send those. So those interviews are going to be more and more important to flush that out and to make sure they're reporting all that income. Let's see, on the 1099 DAs, the whole Bitcoins, all those wonderful, I shouldn't say Bitcoin. I always say that when I ask the interview questions. It's all in the digital assets. So make sure, I always use Bitcoin as an example, and I always get in trouble with that because people are, I don't have Bitcoin, but they may have a digital asset. The plan was to start thinking about how do we handle, maybe some acquisitions this year, and there's some proceeds, maybe all that. Well, for 2025, it's all still out of, if you say yes to anything on this one, it's out of scope. The statement that you can still have it in your portfolio is correct. I mean, that's okay. But if they buy it, or if they buy it, I think with cash, I think it's okay. But if they actually sell it, then they're out of scope instantly. So keep that in mind. It's pretty much no movement on the digital assets from a national and for a AARP point of view. So keep that in mind. It's one of those things where the more they delay it, the more I'm kind of happy, because I'm not sure I want to dig in one more topic on this whole area. Let's see. Emergency expense. I didn't see one of these last year, and I don't know if people just aren't aware of it, but I do want to just remind people that there is an option out there that from early distribution on tax, you can, up to $1,000, get one exclusion. And you can see all the rules there. And I show this only for a hint that you might see this issue on your IRS tax test. Just a reminder, because I almost missed that when I was doing my test. So just keep that in mind. But I think if you see people taking early withdrawals, especially as things get tighter in the economy and people are starting to have to make ends meet, help them out with this issue that they can get up to $1,000. No questions asked as an exclusion from that 10% penalty. So keep that in mind. Now, this is still true from last year. These are the 2024 slides still. We still got to print all the consents. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Phyllis, but we can get the consents at the back of the print sets now. Is that correct? I can't remember, but
Yes, I believe that's correct.
okay, thank you. Amended returns, keep in mind, only if you created at your site, the originals return, it has to only, you can do the amendment at your original site. I forgot to do this a couple of times last year. Make a notification in the return if we use a prior year tax return to validate Social Security. It just helps the reviewer. It helps the person the following year saying, oh, you know, how do we validate those Social Securities? And again, reminder that no more, it's not other income, it's that interest income with the payer entered as 2E file. So that was a change last year. I think we all did it correctly. I just wanted to remind you again that that's a new process, because when I was doing my practice examples, I thought, oh, where's that go again? So I had to kind of remind myself. So just a little memory joggers as we go here. You're going to start seeing some lump sum Social Securities. Why? Normally we'd see them only if like people were applying for disability, and disability takes a long time, and maybe a year or two before they finally approve it. Then they get those lump sum payments. I've seen one, maybe two in my whole career. But now with the Social Security Fairness Act that was effective January 2025, you can see that certain government workers are going to be eligible for Social Security benefits, and they made the law retroactive to January 2024. Now, the tracking of it and counting of it is straightforward, but we're going to cover this in in-person training. There's an actual problem called NUL that you can do in the workbook that will walk you through it. And you know, the example here is a Social Security statement could look like this, and then boom, you got that benefits from 2024, which could be the catch-up. And the accounting for that, you're just trying to make sure they don't get the extra tax on it. So there's a way of doing this, but I will send out some homework assignments later this afternoon, just saying, just go work through that NUL problem, and you'll see how it all flows through. But we're expecting to see a lot more of these this year as people get those catch-up payments.
And hey, Dave, can I add on to that?
Sure, please.
To correctly, properly do our information in the system so that they don't get taxed on that, we need to have their last year return, or the returns for any of the years that they are getting past year benefits. And if they don't bring those in and we don't have them on our and we can't look them up, we may want to send them home and tell them come back at another time to finish that up. Or they can choose to say, forget it, I'll just pay the tax on it this year. But that's not beneficial to them. But we do need their prior year returns for any of the years that they're getting a lump sum past benefit.
No, it's a good point. Thank you. And again, we'll go ahead.
Question: if they didn't bring their prior year return, but we did it in their prior years, we can go back into our software and pull it up, can we not?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
To confuse things yet a bit further, it helps to just look at their tax return printout and see if it's taxable anyway on their
That's
return.
true.
Quite often it's not going to be, and so it's sort of moot.
Yep. That's great points. The key here is just the awareness that this is probably we're gonna see some, and it's just but we'll have some specific training on this. Just want to get you the awareness of this coming. All righty. So let's go talk about the new changes in the new tax law. And again, I'm going to fly at about 25,000 feet. We're not going in deep on this, but I'll give you some awareness and just kind of how the complications are going to start here. First, 1040 changes. You know, all those boxes we check on intake interview forms, they blind, all the different things. I never see them printed out in the 1040. Well, now they're going to be printed out in the 1040 in certain areas. I'll show you in just a minute what's coming through. There's some sensitivity in our taxpayer base about citizenship and different things. So the more reporting that is popping up on their 1040 and going to the government, you may get some questions. So I'm going to point out what's new So you can start seeing, and as you review the tax return with the taxpayer, you may find that they're like, hey, where'd this come from? Why is this showing up here? It's none of their business. Well, yeah, it is. But we'll walk through that and I'll talk about it in a minute. I did throw this on here in case you don't know. The Cincinnati mailing address is gone. They've got everything forwarded if it happens to go there, but just that site processing did close. But I don't think we have any of those. All ours go to I think St. Louis or wherever they go. But just give you a heads up on that. So the changes on reporting. Here's some of the things that are coming in. If they're in a combat zone, which we don't see, but that would show up there now. If they're deceased, that's actually going to print out on the 1040. If you look over here, if you lived in your main home for spouse joint for most of 2025, and people are going to say, why do they care? I don't know why they care, but they want to know that. And it's interesting that by default, that should check because, you're basically, you're saying you're in the country and stuff, but I think that's going to be a little bit of a touchy one if somebody asks about that. These are all still showing the same. Down here under dependents, oops, sorry about that. If you notice under dependents, and I was catching this as I was doing my problems, it's got more information now on what this dependent is. We've always filled out those boxes, but it never showed up, just a dependent and their social security number. Now you're going to start seeing the relationship, check if they've lived with you more than half the year, whether they're a full-time student, whether they're permanently and totally disabled, all those things. And then it's going to show up what kind of credit they're going to get, whether it's child tax credit or for other dependents. So a lot going in here for the dependents, a lot more checking. We've got all the information. It's always been in TaxSlayer, or at least from our intake forms, but now it's going to show up actually on their forms going into the federal system. So, and it also talks about here, if you're living apart, they want to know that. So if we have to look at that as people are for head of household filing and things, that will show up there as well. The one that might get more questions is back here on the second page here, where if someone can claim as a dependent or your spouse is a dependent, if you're born on these dates or before, and if you're blind and all that. Now, if you are a dual status alien, obviously that's out of scope, but you can see there's more and more reporting coming through. We've captured it in the past. It's now going to show up. So as you walk through this, your taxpayers may ask, why is this all being required? And I don't know if it's part of the bill or they just changed the forms. They want to know this information. Again, going back one, sometimes this makes sense. If they're filing for head of household Y, this gives them some more information on that. So any questions on that or any concerns before we skip past that?
Dave, this is Nora Lynn. There's in the chat, there's a question on the combat zone, whether that is for if that's true as of 12/31 or anytime during the year during 2025. And Phyllis says it's out of scope anyway, unless you're a military, but I know we have at least one military certified person in the group, so could be a legitimate question.
I got to check on that. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that one.
And I'm wondering if TaxSlayer, I haven't paid attention to that particular one, but TaxSlayer may actually have some information there.
Okay, I will look that up. Probably look at my 40. Yes.
Quite likely these questions was information that was always transmitted to the IRS. After all, they wouldn't ask something if they didn't want to know it. So it's just that now, sort of full disclosure here, we're telling the taxpayer that, yes, we are collecting this information.
And they know that they're putting it on the intake interview form, so that it shouldn't be a surprise. It just, sometimes when people see things printed out, they get a little more questions or nervous or whatever. But great. Excellent. All righty. I made a note to check on that combat zone, the timing on that. All right. Child tax credit, additional child tax credit, and other dependent credits. Let's see here. The amount is going up. $1,700 is refundable. A new thing this year is Social Security number is required. At least one of them if they're married filing jointly. They made the other dependent credit that's $500. They made that permanent. The good news is that last bullet, TaxAide handles it all. So that's a nice change, but just giving you a heads up that, and I haven't seen a lot of these, but if you don't have the Social Security numbers, it may reject them. And they've got some more wording around what Social Security numbers have to be able, Social Security number allows them to work. I believe that's the case, but so keep that in mind. But the good news is the credits are becoming more generous, so that's good. Let's see. People who itemize or could itemize may be excited about this one. It's now moved to the 40,000 subject to the phase out. Let's see. But I've not seen yet a taxpayer come in that's got the 500,000 income. I've seen some big ones, but not quite that big. So we probably don't have to worry about, but the point would be is you can phase it out below the original 10,000. Most of our taxpayers come in, this won't apply, but there's one or two that we see that have big returns that may be able to use this. Notice at the bottom of the green, this does not carry over to Minnesota. So Minnesota doesn't conform or agree with this one. So they probably don't have a chance to get to it yet. But the thing is you can do it on the federal, but again, don't waste your time on the itemizations on this and just sort of do an eyeball on to make sure, because especially if you have somebody that's over 65 with all the other, I guess the other additional deductions and exclusions, it's going to help. You have to really look hard at, does it make sense to do a itemized deduction run? Always keeping in mind that Minnesota has that charitable contribution benefit. So it's always, that's one area I always make sure we put in, but keep an eye on this one to make sure you don't do a lot of work and it doesn't get you there anyway. So, but just so you've heard about this, people are going to be excited about it, but at the end of the day, you got to make a lot of money. It's got to be a lot of expenses to get up over the hurdles of the standard deduction. Charitable contributions. Probably the one change here is that all veteran service organizations now qualify. If your taxpayer happens to say, I heard that we can just do a charitable contribution and add it on to federal without doing itemizations, that is starting in 2026, not 2025. So advise your taxpayers to keep receipts for that for the upcoming year. That will be an add-on starting in 2026. But Minnesota still will take and give you credit for, or I guess a reduction to your income, anything over $500. So always, always, always ask about charitable contributions and make sure you're putting them in on the federal level, even if I always put in $400 if I'm not sure, because sometimes they remember something later on, I go back and put it in, then it's always good to have that, because you try to give them any benefit you can through the Minnesota side. But keep in mind, people may ask about that. I heard I can give up to $1,000, or I can give some money and I get credit for that or a deduction for that. No, not yet. 2026. All righty. And energy efficient credits. It does terminate at the end of the year, but they want more information. The new big thing here, and I'll show you in a minute, it must include that qualified manufacturer identification number. I kind of missed this in my awareness training and all that, but Nora Lynn got a new furnace in the last couple of weeks, and she got to see that, where the supplier actually gives you the number you need to put in, and I'll show you where it goes in just a minute. Keep in mind that obviously it doesn't apply to insulation or air sealing materials or system, because there's no equipment per se, and home energy audits doesn't have that. But if you do have say a new door, new windows, instead of us having to decide, does it really qualify? Does it meet the threshold of, the BTUs or the energy efficiency and things? You've got to put in this thing QMID number, and it applies to doors, There's windows and skylights. If you put in 2 air conditioners, you can put them both in, but you need one for each one of them. Same as hot water heaters, furnaces, all those things all need this QMID number, the first 4 digits. And that'll then tell you whether, so we don't have to look it up or anything like that. So a nice feature to save us some work and some questions, but unfortunately it all terminates at the end of this year. So we may see a surge if people figure that out and decide to go ahead and buy a new furnace or a hot water heater before this credit goes away. Any questions or concerns on this one? I'm hoping people can bring the paperwork in when they come. Sometimes I've seen some, one-line items, and this hopefully the suppliers that install these things that know about this and are giving that to the taxpayers.
Hey,
Yeah.
a question came up. I think Fred asked it. Do heat pumps apply? And I think heat pumps have their own category, don't they?
They had their own category. I would assume they'd have a QMID number on them.
Kathy's asking if they don't have the QMID, can it be looked up?
I can answer that one.
All right, go ahead.
Having just gone through it in person. The QMIDs have to be, the manufacturer has to apply to the IRS to get the QMID, which means that it's a new thing for the folks that have actually, the distributors and the installers and so forth. And I had to make a few phone calls to get it. But I went online to the manufacturer and I couldn't find it anywhere. And it was, I guess, Carrier maybe, it was a big manufacturer. So this is one of those one-year wonders where we may have to do a little bit of, we may have to ask the taxpayer to do a little bit of searching, and they should be able to lean on their installers to get the number for them. But it's going to be a little confusing, and it's this year only. So just keep that in the back of your head. Any other
Okay.
questions on that one?
Alrighty. All right, now some of the new tax laws. This is going to talk about a little bit about the no tax on tips and overtime and extra senior deductions, things like that. So let's first get some ground rules on that. One, none of the new tax breaks are refundable. So first step you always want to do before you start doing a whole lot of work on overtime or tax, the tips and things, make sure they actually have a taxable income to look at. Sometimes you can do a lot of work when it doesn't really matter. But keep that in mind. All the new tax breaks require a valid Social Security number. And they cannot file married filings separately to get those, except for the car loan interest deduction. No idea why they made that delineation, but keep that in mind. So if someone comes in and wants to do married filing separately, if they have overtime, some people are starting to figure that out, trying to say, oh, if I can get below a certain threshold level of income, I can married file separately. Usually it's a penalty for them to do that. It's much higher tax brackets and things, but keep that in mind. There are some maximum amounts that qualify. So if, say, for example, they have $50,000 in tips, they're not going to get all that excluded. There's some maximum amounts in there. There's also phase outs applied to all that. And I know the National made a comment that Congress, for whatever reason, loves the phase outs. So all these have phase outs at some level. Usually income levels we don't see, but just got to keep that in mind. If the taxpayer had no tax liability before, they're not going to see any changes to their tax. It's not going to help them anymore, but it also isn't going to penalize them. But it's and the last line here, new tax breaks are deductions below the line and therefore do not impact federal AGI. And I saw that when I was watching on the blogs, people talking about above the line, below the line. I'm thinking, what's the line? And I always kind of drove me nuts. I said, all right, what is this magical line? And so I went out to the 1040 and I said, all right, where is this? So the line, quote unquote, is the adjusted gross income. So it's basically you're bringing down all your your income, your W-2s, your dividends, your pensions, your social securities, and you're getting to your adjusted gross income. There's the line. And then all these deductions now will start coming below the line. And why is that line important? One, Minnesota starts with that number on adjusted gross income, and that's where they start and go forward. So you can automatically in your mind say, uh-oh, what applies to federal is not going to apply to state, because state starts with adjusted gross income and does their own thing. So we're going to have some explaining to do when we go through the federal return versus the state return. The income is going to be lower in some cases on the federal versus the state. So when you look at it, the line starts there. Then all these deductions are going to come in on this new Schedule 1A. What used to be in there was the qualified, QMID. What does that stand for? I'm going to get it in my head in a minute. The business deduction, if you had a self-employment, that was the only thing that showed up in there. Now they're going to have 4 sections in there. It's a whole new category of overtime, senior deductions, the tips, and the car deductions. So we're going to touch on this a little bit, but it's, and the QMID still stands above here by itself, but this new action here, A and B, it's a whole new Schedule 1A is going to come in. But again, none of this is going to apply to Minnesota, so keep that in mind. So let's start with the easy one. Now, this one's important to catch the title. Everyone in the media and I think the communication has been, oh, we're no tax on Social Security, no tax on Social Security. That's what it's been advertised as, but it really has nothing to do with Social Security. You can get this enhanced senior deduction because you're over 65. And if your spouse is over 65, you both get it. Nothing, you can be over 65, both of you, not take Social Security, you still get the deduction, okay? So a couple things here. One, is it automatic in TaxAide? Yes, it's automatic. It happens. If you're over 65, now the phase out is pretty tough on some people. You know, it's if you're single, it's $75,000 as a phase out starts on there. If you're married, filing joint, it's $150,000. But basically, you get $6,000 per person, up to $12,000. So in essence, it may wipe out Social Security for some people that were getting a little bit of that Social Security taxed. But again, they're not connected. It's just raising another $12,000 income that's not taxed. Now they're saying, here's your tax break, but I think it's just pointing out to them that here's an extra senior deduction, and leave it at that. Now, again, in the green, doesn't carry over to Minnesota, so their taxable income in Minnesota will probably be higher because this is lowering their federal income down a little bit more. But over on Minnesota side, it's going to start higher, and this has not been, Minnesota has not adopted this yet. So for 2025, this will be a gap. Any questions on this one before I move on? It's pretty simple, but the key here is how you understand and how you explain it when you feed back to the taxpayer. Hearing none, that's good. Let me, now again, I'm staying at 20,000 feet on this, so bear with me on this one, in the next couple. No tax on tips. First, it's not automatic in TaxSlayer. And to give you a sense, a lot of the employers have not prepared for this and have not required to identify it. Now, there is something on W-2s. There's some boxes we've seen before where there's Social Security tips and Medicare tips, things like that. So there are some boxes on there, but to actually for the taxpayer to say I had X amount of tips in the year, they're going to have to either know it or hopefully their employer will give them some information to say that, or it's on their W-2 there. The key here is that the income has to be reported on their W-2 to count. So it could show up as a gross amount and not be broken out on that box 7 or 8, I think it is. But they can self-identify how much that was tips, and there's gonna be a worksheet and all that they can fill out. But the onus is gonna be on the taxpayer through all this. And a scenario could happen where a taxpayer comes in and they're a newspaper delivery person and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, I had some tips, cash tips that no one knew about, but I had like $100 of extra cash tips." That's a bad thing for you to know about, because 1, you have to report that income, but 2, then you can't deduct it because it wasn't reported on a W-2 or any kind of form that goes into the government. So hopefully it doesn't happen to you, but that's a worst case scenario on that. But there's a whole section of training we're going to do on this. I'm just giving you a heads up that here's just some background on it. 1, the tips qualified up to only 25,000. Now it's got to be voluntary tips paid in cash, and we're not going into a lot of detail here, but it is somewhat, the self-employed can have it as well. There's some phase outs. It does affect the qualified business deductions and things. So when you go through that, but if you do a married file separately, there's no deduction for the tips. So keep that in mind. A social security number is required for the tip earner. Some of those things are in there. The key here is, maybe the key word I'm going to say is confusion. It's going to happen because unless we can point to the W-2 and look at it, we're going to rely on the taxpayer to kind of self-identify certain amounts or what they feel they got in over time if it wasn't broken out on their W-2. But it's got to be in there somewhere. It's got to be income on that W-2, and they're going to have to stand behind it a little bit. We'll go through this a lot more. National is building a worksheet that the taxpayer can fill out to help you input the numbers and things. And I'm going to give you a problem to work on between now and January 16th that will walk you through how to put this into the TaxSlayer, how to account for it, and how to report it. And you'll start seeing that Schedule 1A, how that all works. But that's as deep as we're going to go on this. Any questions on this before I move to the overtime?
Yeah, Kathy Passy had a question there. Kathy, would you, let's see, does cash also mean received by credit cards, through distribution through credit cards? And I believe it does.
It does. Yes, it does. Yeah.
It does. But the other thing, I think, when you go into exercises, there was something about somebody receiving a gift, like tickets to a ball game or something like that. And they tell you, once we know that, they have to report the value of that as a gift, as a tip, but then that is not qualified as a cash tip. So goods received or favors received.
And I won't go into here, but there are certain job categories that were not included versus included. I think you saw some blow up in the media over the last month or two. My daughter's a nurse. She was one that was affected by that. But it's interesting how they do it. One thing I do want to point out, I'm going to go back one slide here. Just to keep in mind, you're saying, well, what is the tip income on this? It's really going to be how that industry works. I mean, I think Uber has a certain rate they do on it, and how the people put it on their credit cards or on their forms and things. But I think a lot of restaurants do like sharing of tips, and then that hopefully will show up in the W-2, and you don't have to worry about trying to find that out. That's going to be the easy one of the two. Here comes the hard one, which is the no tax on overtime. That again, it's not automatic in TaxSlayer. The challenge here is there's no requirement by the government to the companies to report it. And obviously, in W-2s and different things, there's no box that says, here's your overtime for, other than just your gross pay. So what's going to happen here is hopefully some companies will tell their employees, here's the overtime you got. Some people have it on their paychecks. Some people have it, that there's a self-reporting thing, hopefully in there somewhere. Here's one of the caveats here is one, the income has to be reported on a W-2. So it has to be part of their taxable income. It can't say, oh, I had some overtime on the side here that they paid me cash or something. That's not going to work. The part that counts for overtime is just the halftime premium. So for example, if you make, so let's see, I get a number I can work with, it works in my head, $30 an hour, or you make $20 an hour and you get overtime, the most you can get is the $10 premium. So it's $30. So if they may pay you $40 overtime, but you only get to do 50% of your base pay. So again, the taxpayer has to know their base pay. They have to know what 50% of that would be and how much overtime. So you can see it, you can start seeing a rat's nest building here of how we're going to figure this out. A lot of it comes from the taxpayer. Now, if they get double time, you still only get the count the 50% over the base pay. So if you have a double time in there, you can't get that. Say you're making $20 and you're getting $40, you don't get the $20. You still only get the 10 to take off of your deduction. This one's going to be a tough one because, again, there's no reporting. You're really relying on the taxpayer to know and to fill out the forms, the worksheets ahead of time, and then it's on them to substantiate it if the IRS ever comes back and asks. But we can help them with the math a little bit, but that's all we can really help them with. We can't really say, well, did you work 40 hours? And, and it's going to be a little convoluted if you got like people that are firemen or something that work the four 10-hour shifts. And if you have somebody that works over different periods where it has to be a 2-week period before you get over overtime. So it's going to be, the hardest part of this is going to be not reporting on tax layers. It's going to be how do you capture the information. Let me give you just where the limits are. Qualified overtime up to $12,500, $25,000 if married, filing jointly. It does phase out at starting at $150 or $300 for married, filing jointly. Let's see here. Social Security number is required for the overtime earner. And again, if you're married, filing separately, it doesn't count. But it's going to have a form to fill in there. This is going to be the hard one where how do we get this information? And I think that's going to be our challenge. Now, the problem I'll give you, it tells you and it lays it out nice, simple, like all these problems. Here's all the information, boom, boom, boom. So it teaches you tax layer and how it works in the reporting. But you can see you're relying on this person coming in and saying, I heard my overtime is not taxable. And they say, well, how much overtime do you have? And they say, I don't know. And then there we go. So may take a little more time to work through some of those issues. And we'll spend more time talking about the separate supporting worksheet that National has built that we can go through to help the taxpayer fill it out. That taxpayers got to fill it out, and we can, but they can at least try to work through it. Hopefully their companies are giving them some information. Any questions on this one before I skip over this?
Janet's got her hand up. Janet, do you want to unmute just to ask?
Actually, it's George.
George. Okay.
I'm watching here with Janet. Excuse me. I'm looking at the slide at the sub bullet of the first bullet. Cannot use tips qualified for tips deduction. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's a kind of a convoluted statement there. What it's basically saying is, if you're, I think it's what they're trying to say is if you have overtime and, how does this work? In fact, I guess
they're saying that you can't double dip, isn't it?
It's not double dipping, but I'm trying to think of how it would double dip on the overtime. So I guess you got to be careful that if your tip income is, you're saying that some of your tip income is part of your overtime, you can't do that.
Mhm.
And it's clear as mud what I just said. So sorry about that, but Georgia, you caught me on that one too, because I saw that and I'm like, I better dig into this one. And I did not dig into this one deep enough to figure this out yet. Whoever said it was not, the intent is not to double dip is correct. I'm just trying to figure out how would you double dip? I mean, how would you create a situation where you have overtime that's tip income? I guess I don't know how that would work, but by the time we get to live in-person training, we'll know, and we'll get that figured out for you.
Thank you.
You bet. Apologize for that.
Tim's got a question.
Where, if TaxSlayer doesn't handle this, where do we put this?
Oh, let me clarify that. TaxSlayer will handle it in this part 3 where you put it in. How much overtime did you have? And it'll show up as a deduction. My point is getting that number to put in there is going to be the challenge. That's where the work's going to be. Not that TaxSlayer's got a box to put a number in there and it'll carry right through and reduce their income. It's how do you know what the number is? That's going to be the hard part.
Mike,
That makes sense?
Tim, there is a special line item on the screens where it says to input this.
and my gut feeling is that, like you said, Dave, people aren't going to have this information readily at hand. But if they think it's worthwhile for them to figure out, we'll give them the worksheet. And if they can't come up with that information all by themselves, we're not going to sit there and try to help derive it for them. I'm guessing I'd send them home and say, you go figure this out and come back and we'll finish up your return at a later time. We'll do as much as we can, like we always do when they're missing information. But I don't want to see us sitting there for a half an hour trying to figure this out for them. That's not our job. That's my 2 cents.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Any other questions on this one? This is probably the one that's probably it's going to be the hardest one to figure out. Only because even what qualifies at 50% premium only, and it's not the whole overtime. It's like, oh, I made $30 times 10 hours. I should get that $3,000 or $300 off, whatever. No, it's the premium point only. So it's only the $10 premium times those 10 hours. So it's $100 deduction. So it's people are going to come in with understanding of all my overtime is excluded. No, it's only the premium part. And then the other question will be is how do I get that number? So.
And I think there's also a caveat depending. There was something about their job has to be applies to the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Yep.
Which is kind of like wage paid people. But if you're a professional and you're, exempt or whatever, but some people get paid overtime, even if they're in that professional categories, that type of overtime does not count on this. So there's a lot of caveats to figure out.
And just to throw one little more wrinkle in there, just so you can have a little more gray hair like me. If you get comp time instead of overtime pay, there's a wrinkle in there for that. So I'm just going to say that and leave it there just to hang out in the air. But that's going to be a part of the discussion as well. We'll get to that in our training, but that's
Dave,
yes.
I just want to emphasize, Maggie put something in the chat that we encourage our taxpayers to bring their final pay stub of the year. I think pay stubs are going to be a huge source of information for us this year. So that's a great idea
point.
for all
Great
the sites.
idea. Yep.
But again, the taxpayer has to know what their pay rate was for each one of those dollars, because they might have gotten a raise during the year, and it's not going to be an obvious source of information.
Don't you just feel so excited about the tax year coming up? It's going to be so much fun. No, it's very exciting.
This
Good.
year is going to be the worst for that. And the IRS has said, oh, you know, don't panic. We'll be okay. Next year, employers are going to have to provide the information, and
Mhm.
the tips are going to have to be better documented. So next year it'll be a slam dunk.
Fingers crossed. All righty. Well, that was fun. Let's get to the next fun topic. No tax on car interest loans. This is that fourth section of that Schedule 1A. So is it automatic? Nope. And here's where the taxpayer has to bring in information from there, and it requires the whole VIN number. It's funny here. Now you don't need a valid Social Security number to get this one. It's like, I don't know why they put that rule in there, but you've got to bring in the the 7-digit vehicle identification number, and it's got to be set up so that it's where the final assembly was done to count. Let me show you the amounts. It's up to $10,000 for each year. The phase out starts pretty low, at 100,000 or 200,000 for married filing jointly. This one, if they buy out a lease and take a loan out, it doesn't count. It's got to be a brand new car. If they borrow the money from Aunt Joe and get interest, nope, doesn't count. It's got to be a bank or, you know, some kind of financial institution that's actually you're paying interest into that's reporting it. It's going to be, and the car's got to be assembled. It's got to be a certain category of assembly and all those things. So the VIN number is going to be your magic solution to this one, whether it qualifies or not. And then do they have the interest statement from the financial institution to count? But this one should be a little more straightforward. But again, it's another wrinkle that you hope that they're bringing the VIN. I can have this image of people going out to the parking lot and taking a picture of their VIN in the car and bringing it back in, and who knows? But they'll still need that interest statement so you can figure out how much interest they actually paid.
I think if you do a registration check by either their name and date of birth or license number, and they have vehicles titled to them, the VIN will be on that.
Okay.
They could pull it off of that. Or they bring their proof of insurance with them. If they have that with them, that the VIN will be on that.
Oh, good point. That's a good point. Thank you. No, so anything we can do to help the taxpayer get this, great. But it's hopefully have that interest statement so you know how much interest they actually paid. And if again, you hope that all that work we do to get the VIN number, the card actually qualifies for the deduction. Or it's got to be a passenger vehicle. I think it's got to be, and it can't be like there's a wrinkle in here again. If they bought a new car for their Grubhub delivery, guess what? You got to allocate how much interest goes over to the Schedule C and how much you can then take as this deduction, stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in our in-person training, but nothing's easy. Maybe we'll say it on these things. Any questions on this one before I move on to the next topic? So that's maybe even a 50,000 foot level. So it's a lot here. So this is why you're starting to see my note saying we may have in 2 days of in-person training. We have lots of new stuff. This is not going to be easy, but it will take some of your time to do some homework ahead of time. There's videos to watch. There's a problem to work on, and you can work it through TaxSlayer. Again, you can see already the TaxSlayer entry is going to be the easy part of it. It's going to be getting that information. It's going to be the challenge for us. On this next slide, this is some things I picked up about Minnesota, but I'll defer to Phyllis on this because her and I had not had a chance to talk yet. But these are a couple of things I picked up from the training. The Advanced Child Tax Payment Reconciliation. I can't remember the exact number, but quite a few people, maybe 17,000, 18,000 people in the state of Minnesota took advantage of this tax payment, advanced payment. And they're supposed to get a statement in January that says they got these advanced payments. the state's worried about, say they share a child between claiming every other year. That's going to cause all kinds of problems for them. If the child turns 18, it's going to create problems for them. All these things. So all the stuff we warned them about before they took it last year could come into play now this year. But we'll have training on this. But it's a new thing we have to do this year. If they did have the advanced payment, they took that last year. Good news that Minnesota is now going to accept electronic amended returns starting with the 2025 year tax year. But it's only M1. So it doesn't include the M1 PR, but it's a start. But hopefully we're not amending a return we just did in 2025, but it could happen. But it's just keep in mind that they're moving in that direction, which is an encouraging thing. This last bullet, which I think is, I thought I found it, and Phyllis came over and we're sitting there doing a QR, and I said, "Oh, I know where that's information." Remember we used to have to put in there, "Hey, the rent you paid is more than your income." There was no place to put that in last year. I thought I found it, but it wasn't the right spot. It wasn't a spot for it. This year, they've actually put that in. There's a new entry point. So keep this in mind. If the rent is higher than their income, they've got to have a reason why. A lot of people look at me like, why do they care? So, well, they care because you're getting a credit based on income you didn't have. So how did you pay it? So that's a new piece there that will actually help the state of Minnesota. Other things, the code at the top of the rent statement, that code is required. It seemed to go pretty well last year. Phyllis, anything else I'm missing on this? I know I'm missing some things, but anything else you want to add or point out that I'm missing?
Well, I just want to add to your amended returns there. We can only amend 2025 returns. We can't amend 24 or earlier ones and send them electronically. So only 2025, and we can't amend electronically the M1 PR. And yeah, I guess that's enough.
Well, I think I remember him making one comment too. When we do a paper amendment, he put a caution out there. That could be almost a year before they get feedback on that. So the paper process is very, very slow. So warn the taxpayer that while it's been filed, it could take some time for that response from the state of Minnesota to come back. All righty. Anything else?
Wait a second. I'm sorry, Dave. There's a question in the chat. I think a little confusion about the entry point that you talked about.
Yeah.
For putting in the information. And I just wanted to, for everybody's benefit, that we're talking about the rent credit. We're not talking about the M1 PR, which still works the way it's always worked. And there was a place for that information, but this is for specifically the rent credit.
Thank you. Yep. Good clarification. Thank you. Okay. I did want to touch on this whole no more paper check thing you read about in the thing. Here's how it's going to go. The IRS, you can, and I'm going to skip ahead just for a minute, just to show you this. The boxes or intake forms aren't changing. Okay, so if you look here, they can still check. I want check by mail, and they can still pay. They can still pay by check. But the point here is, if you say I want a refund at a federal level on a check, it's going to take them forever to get it. Basically, the IRS, if you ask for a refund by a check, the IRS is going to send them a letter saying, please give us bank information. And if they say, well, I don't have it, I'm not giving it to you. And I remember a taxpayer a couple of years back just refuses to give the bank information to the government because they don't want them to have it. It is what it is. But the point is, the government is then going to say, all right, if you aren't going to give us bank information, we'll get around, when we get around to it, send you a debit card. So it could be quite a while before they get that refund. So it's really we really, and I don't remember too many people that didn't, I think it's more on the payment side where people want to write a check because they want to control the timing of it. But the IRS will take checks for payment, but they really want direct deposit if they can get it, or direct pay, or any way one can do that. But I would imagine that as the years progress, taking checks in will also maybe be changed. Now, here's where Minnesota says, hey, send us checks. We don't care. Just pay us. And we'll issue checks as refunds. No big deal. So Minnesota is making it easier on this spot versus what the federal is doing. Any questions on that?
Sue has a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sue. Do you want to unmute?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
The paper checks for federal, what about people that are making quarterly payments? Is there any advice to them?
Oh, when I mean they make their estimated payments?
Right. We've got quite a few people that make estimated payments.
And they use it via check?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
give them usually the
Oh.
little payment stubs and then they send it in by check along the way.
I think on the pay side, they seem to be still taking checks in. I do mine electronic, but I think they must still, I think even if you wanted to pay them, they'll still do that, accept it. But the refund part is where they're really being hardcore on, is the money coming back out. They will not give you a check. So I think they'll take the payments in still with checks.
Okay.
And I
then
think that there was a new wrinkle just heard about yesterday, I think, that the post office is changing their method of canceling envelopes. And so it's not going to be done now right at the post office that they send their payment through. It's going to be downstream at the master sorting station. And so it could be a couple, 3 days before it hits there. So if it's a time issue, timestamp thing that they're worried about, they better be sending in their payments many days ahead.
Good point. Yep. I remember seeing that yesterday.
Dan, do you have a question?
Alrighty.
Hey, wait a minute. It looks like Jenny has a. Jeannie, do you want to unmute? We can't hear you. You're asking a question, but I can see your mouth move. No. No, we can't hear you, Jeannie. Oh, no.
Do you want to type it in chat?
Oh, she is unmuted, but we can't hear her.
That may be something on her end.
Yeah. Type it into chat.
So while we're waiting, Mary just made a comment that it's will be advantageous to owe money to the feds. Is that correct? And I think for the unbanked people, it's easier for them to get the money to the feds than to be able to get the money back if they're getting a refund. But there are, again, this year there will be ways. It's just will take them a lot longer to get their money back. So from that sense, yes.
It's a delicate balance too, because they're starting to crack down on penalties for underpayment.
Right.
Too.
Exactly. But I think the people we're talking about are not going to be over that $1,000 limit or whatever.
Okay. Good point. Yep.
Okay.
So-
In the chat.
Yeah. Jeannie's question or statement was, if people don't have a bank account and cannot get one, they can get a debit card to put the refund on. Yes, that's correct. But, and I think that's how IRS is going to deal with it. But part of the point is that person needs to be informed that it's going to take months to get that debit card, and they better not move because it's going to be mailed to a certain address. So there's,
If
not-
Two
they
different-
have a debit card that they can put money onto, then they can give us, as long as that debit card has a routing number and an account number, we can have, that's a direct deposit to a debit card. Now they can't, as far as I know, they can't have it put on their Social Security debit card if that's what they have. But if they have one, then they probably can have us put that information in and have it direct deposited to that card.
yeah.
No, good points right through here. So yeah, I see less and less of this. And I think, I know the national training, they said, well, a lot of people get Social Security payments, those are electronic. So hopefully that they've got it already set up a bank information and somehow, but there's a few that could have a problem with this. So, all right. With that, any other questions before we take a quick break here? It's a lot. I mean, again, I feel like I just dipped my toe in the water because there's a lot here that's changing and moving and unclear. So the goal today was to kind of get everybody up to speed on, there's a lot of changes coming and how do we get up to speed? And again, TaxAide part of it is going to handle it once we get the numbers to put in. It's getting those numbers to put in was we're going to have some challenges. With that, when we take a quick 10-minute break, we'll be back at 10:20. And then we'll do a walk through some of the available training and explain what the certification process is and requirements, and then wrap it up here. So 10:20, we'll come back. Everybody kind of back somewhat. Hopefully you had a good stretch break there. Real quick, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of some things that are out there in the training. Just want to refresh real quick. National's got an amazing catalog of videos out there. I'll show you in a minute where they all are. And they categorize them into new, counselors, experienced, deep topics. The self-study process, it gets better and better every year. They got quizzes, they've got problems, they got some deep dive for advanced topics. Minnesota's got a whole dedicated web page now, and it's got several new videos and a lot of tip sheets and worksheets that really, really help when you go through things. For the Minnesota webpage, make sure you've got this pinned in there. And most of your Chromebooks, you guys should have done it last year. The password has not changed. Open up Minnesota, all small caps. And again, there's the link here. If you don't have it, I'll show you where I got it bookmarked in mine, but we can definitely get that to you. So I'm going to switch gears here and go into stop presenting this one. Let's see here. Let me get out of this one and stop sharing that. And let me go into my other one here now. Let's see here. And then I would invite my peers, Norlin, Jim, and Phyllis to jump in and correct me wherever I'm off here. There's a lot out here. I'm just going to touch on it, but I think sometimes we get in the habit of just going out there and saying, hey, let's go ahead and come on, get up here. There you go. Just do the 4 or 5 problems in the workbook, and I'll figure it out as I go through the IRS test. I really think, and I always catch myself, I don't have enough time. I can't enough time to figure this out, but boy, it just helps to go through some of these things to refresh your brain a little bit. This has been my savior on your Chromebook, this whole TaxAide link. I hope everybody's seen this. If not, let me know. Clicking on this one just brings you to all kinds of good stuff. So I go down to tax prep and training. and I go right down here to the training resource links. And I go
Dave,
there.
we're not seeing that on the.
You are
there
not.
go. Okay, now it's there.
Now is it there?
Yes.
Okay. Okie doke. So this is where I use my launching from this. It's again going in here, tax prep training, and then training links. There's one for new volunteers, but there's one for just training resource links. What I like is I find personally, I should always say this first, always click here for the latest version because things do change. And sometimes it doesn't bring up the latest refresh point. I like the 4491. It's my textbook. I don't read it cover to cover, but on this whole new tax law, I went through and started reading some of those pages, and it talks to you like plain English. I really like reading that. The 4012 is like how you put it into the tax layer, but 4491 will kind of talk to you in layman's terms a little bit and explain it. It usually gives them scenarios, like if so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that. It's a nice way to do it. What I discovered, and I didn't realize this until a while back, on the NTCC workbook, a couple things. Let me click on that. And if you're not seeing it, please somebody yell at me here. Let's see here. This is what you got a printout of, but guess what? It's not the full printout. Notice there's 170 pages. Your workbook does not have 170 pages. So there's a couple things here. One, always click for the latest version first, because things are changing on the fly all the time. But two, when you go down here, there's this wonderful errata page. What's changed and what's in there. Luckily on the IRS tests, the only thing that's changed has been in the basic tests, but always check for erratas. What's changing? If you're working on a problem and you can't come out to the answer key, a lot of times they've made a change in here somewhere, okay? Like on the Jackson problem, there's different things, or there's Janice problem. There's different information in here so if you're getting trouble, you're getting stuck, always check here to make sure that it wasn't a change in place. The next thing I was going to show you in this workbook is you've got in your workbook printed out the core exercises and the proficiency exercises, the lump sum exercise that will be your homework, and some classrooms that I'll be using to teaching the new counselors. But, oh, lo and behold, look down here. Once you get down to pass the Medicaid waiver and stuff like that, there's a whole bunch more stuff under online workbook exercises. Starting at page 86, they got all kinds of stuff, a whole comprehensive exam problem, education credits, Medicare waiver, all these different problems you can work through to learn about and actually work in TaxSlayer on these things. Medicare waiver payments, things like that. All the way through, there's a lot more than just what's in your workbook. If you really want to learn. Yes.
Excuse me, there's a question in the chat and from the same person who's raised their hand. But the question was whether we can get answers for the additional problems in the workbook.
Yes.
Online ones. And that's so weird.
Let me go back here to here's the NTC training. All right. So let me phrase this in two ways of answering this. One, there is an answer key out here. Okay. So if you look at if you go down here, where's that at? Like there's answers for advanced topics, answers for certification lessons, answers for new volunteer, all those. But guess what it doesn't have? Minnesota. So once Minnesota is released in TaxSlayer and it's stable, some people are going to have to be very busy working through the problems and making sure it all works the way it's designed to work. And then once it's working the way it's designed to work, then create the answer key. So you'll see in a few slides, I'm going to send out, I will be emailing you all the answer key for both federal and state. You know, my goal is always not to trick you or try to make you work extra hard. The whole goal is to teach you how to get to that answer. But I think somebody asked me a while back, well, I have the 1040 forms and all those things. Right now, we're just doing a spreadsheet with the answers at key steps along the way. I don't know if we'll have, I think some cases, some of these has the forms and some do not. But here's where the answers right now for the federal are sitting at. So the answers for new volunteer and certification, and then the advanced topics. Does that answer that question for somebody? So you can get to them now. Go ahead.
Not really, because the workbook answers we've been given outside of this for the ones in the printed workbook, but not for the ones in are only in the online one. You pointed at answers for the self-study program. That's a separate program.
Right.
Okay, yeah, okay. Let me go up here. Okay. Let's see, it should be in there. Thought it was there. Hold on a second.
Dave, I don't recall seeing the answer key for the online problems.
Ah, I thought I may have gotten mixed up. I will make that as an action item. It should be out there. Yeah.
They are, but they're on the instructor sheet of prep links.
I will. Okay.
Just send it out.
I will definitely send it out. Yep. I have access to that, so apologize for that, but I will get those out to everyone. But again, keep in mind this, the Minnesota components will be out there a ways yet until we get the whole TaxAide up and running. So, but I'll get you the federal piece for all those advanced and online ones for sure. So thank you for that to do. I'll get that out. So I apologize. You're going to probably get some different levels of emails coming on these answer keys because I can get this out now for the federal, but another one will be coming with the state as we get the state nailed down for both our core and our proficiency and so forth and so on as we go forward. So I'll try to be clear on the notes as they come out, why the answer key is being updated, or why do I get another email? Which one do I go to? So it'll just be more as we add on things, not taking away.
Dave?
But, yes.
Just a follow-up question from someone. Is there an ETA for the answer sheet? And because there are multiple answer sheets, I'm not sure how well you can answer that, but if you can give a time frame.
Today, I'll send out the federal part of the online problems, and I'll make sure I have all the federal basically for all the problems in the workbook. The state will be, I don't even want to put a date on it. We don't know when TaxAide is going to be available. So I'm going to let Phyllis answer it, but I'm not going to, I would say you got to wait at least a week and a half, but I don't know how long. I don't know. It's a hard answer because we don't know when the release is.
Yeah, I can't possibly tell you until I know that tax layers up for Minnesota.
But I'll get the federal out today for all the workbook problems. That'll be step one. And then the next note you get from me will then hopefully have the Minnesota components, but it's going to be a time crunch, unfortunately, as we get into the middle of January working on these problems. But you can still go ahead and do all your federal work. That doesn't change anything. But keep in mind, look at the Minnesota components because there's some tweaks here or there along the way when you're entering your federal to make sure you get those in. Some people will just enter the federal and do it and tie out, but the changes we're making in Minnesota, maybe it's a tax exempt or something like that. It doesn't really change the answer in federal. It just changes how the state's going to be handled. So make sure it's clear on that the answer key will come out today for the federal for all the problems. All right. And then, so going back to the workbook real quick, there are some good areas in here to look at. If you do want to see different topics, Uber driver, I like that one because I always get stuck on what I'm getting, what am I seeing, what's coming from on the NEC versus different things. So I always like to work through one of those. And here's some of the answers here in there, but I'll make sure that we'll get those to you as we go along. The other thing I was going to point out in here, that's how much broader the workbook is. The self-study has all kinds of different certification examples and advanced topics. So let me just look real quick here at the advanced topics. If you wanted to really go deep and look at less common advanced topics, and you say, I get stuck on this, and this could even help you if you're sitting at a site and you've got a problem you've never seen before, you want to work through it, you can at least go look and see what they did in this spring. Like here's a rideshare one, a sale of a residence. We see those once in a while. The lump sum Social Security, it's more examples of different types people get. Early distributions with medical exceptions. If you can see that there's all kinds of railroad one. So there's lots of deep, if you want to go and look at different examples, and sometimes you can just say, oh, how does this work with the disabilities, these QCDs and things? Remember, oh, here, there's the less common advanced topics and the answers for the advanced topics, okay? So if you want to say, how does that one work? I'd love to see how the answer comes out for a railroad retirement. You can go take a look at it. So it's a nice way of, if you want to go deeper on things, there's an option there. I mentioned the training videos. If you go in here, they got all the training videos they got for volunteers or for returning. If I go into returning volunteers, what I've liked about these is they're nice short minutes. Not the tax law update's not short, but as you can see, we touched on it. You get bogged down in it pretty quick. But if you look here and say, hey, what about I want to refresh myself an intake interview, or I want to look at the public safety officer again, 8 minutes. And you got a choice here of the PowerPoint and the video, okay? So you can get both of them, bring one up and then watch it. But the nice thing here is if you want to refresh and you don't want to do a problem, you can go look at the video. And here's stuff on early distributions, stuff on advanced credit, the adjustments of credits, lump sums, education credits, all kinds of stuff in through here. It just goes and goes and goes. And you can just see as you go along here, all kinds of videos and things. And they're only, some are 19 minutes, some are 4 minutes. So you can see it's not going to consume a ton of your time, but if you're stuck on something or you want to just go a little deeper, sometimes having somebody walk you through it can make it a little bit easier. And so that's just a sort of walkthrough of just letting you know what's out there. Just to give you a sense for, wow, there's lots of information. So as you are struggling or you don't want to, do all those problems in a workbook, there are other ways of getting more information and you can kind of dig into different areas. All right, now that's the federal. Let me just go and do the state here real quick. Now state, I've had this linked on here for the last couple of years. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's, if I go back to my other presentation, like if you need the link for the state, let me know. Let Jim know, somebody know, we'll get that to you right away. But I always bookmark it right here because it's just as important as my federal. So when I click on that, it comes up as the Minnesota webpage. We owe Mr. Mosner a debt of gratitude for keeping this thing up and running and battling the powers that be that we shouldn't have this, but we have it. So thank you, Jim. But here, there's, what we want to do is click on the volunteer resources, and this is where the password comes up. And again, remember, it's open up, OPEN up Minnesota. I'll show it to you. There it is. So you can see open up Minnesota, all small caps. And just hit enter and you're into the treasure trove of information. Now they got it in categories here, tax season resources versus training resources. I'm going to go in the training resource section and show you what's all in here. So first of all, the magical book that has all the Minnesota annotations is being worked on. So be patient. That's another whole major project somebody's working on that takes a lot of time, but it's so wonderful when you have the hot links and everything else. So that is coming. Again, Minnesota scope, keep it on that. Also this federal scope, always watch for those things. But as you go through here, lots of stuff, TSO navigation, tip sheets, training resources for new volunteers, experienced counselors. Same style as NTC. I can click on that real quick for you just so you can see it. And it talks about all the Minnesota components, okay? The supplements to the proficiency exercises, the supplements to the core. You say, where I got the printout from Jim in December, but I lost it or I can't find it. This is where you can get it. And there's several spots on the webpage to get it, but this is the one I always go to. But there's different ways of getting that, okay? But all kinds of the Minnesota intake questions form, if you want to go back and refresh yourself on it, there it is there. Lots of good information out here on just the training materials. But let's go further down here. And there's a whole matrix of modifications that Phyllis has done into the whole, to get the Minnesota pieces added on to the workbook problems. So as you go right through here, all the way through, you just click any one of these and you'll be able to get to the right point that you need. So for example, on proficiency exercises, here's the durability question. Here's some of the Minnesota pieces that you'd have to pick up. Again, you've got the printout, but if you lost it or can't find it or you need to reprint it or something, it's all out here on this web page. You keep going down, some counsel that maybe do more than just the 4 problems that are required. And here's some more on those, on the extended workbook problems. There's updates for all these, so you can add the Minnesota piece for the complicated ones as well. And the spreadsheet answer here will be coming. Okay, right now, if I click on it, it's going to give you just the 25 answers for federal for some of these. But what Phyllis had done to test it all, she had done the Minnesota for 2024. So a big accolade to Phyllis for working through all this for 2024. She now will have to scramble with some of her key supporters to get the 2025 done. But that's where the answer keys will be. But I will send those out via email separately, so you know you always have it one spot. But if you lose that email or can't find it, here's where you get some of the answer keys here as well. Going down, this is where I spend a lot of time refreshing myself. Lots of good tip sheets and worksheets in here. I always have to go back and look at the K through 12 because I always forget what's refundable and non-refundable and what's a deduction. I always shudder when I see a railroad. I always hope somebody else takes that person because I never want to really do that. But if I have to do it, I can go figure it out here. Good tip sheets. There's some calculators over here. How to do it. This QPM, we're going to do some training on it, but it's always good to know where the calculators are and the tip sheets. To keep going down, I always have to do this. Homeowners or co-occupants or household income, which ones I should pick up, the overlapping months. It's always good to go back and refresh your brain on this. This part I always like here too. Sometimes you have to explain stuff back to the taxpayer. If you have some questions about how do I explain this tax credit advance payments, what is this checking administered checkbox, what does that mean? These are all great tips for you to how to, if they have underpayments, how to help them. So all these are all out here. So sometimes people don't spend time looking and see what's out here. Again,
Dave, scroll up just a second there. A
Mhm.
little bit. As long as I want to mention that customer portal. Last year, remember, we could not have clients print their documents to our stuff. So one of the solutions was to create invite them to a portal, and then they could upload their information to that. I still have the information there, but this year there's been a new improvement that we're going to have at all the sites, and this was nationwide. We are going to have we're going to have 2 routers at the site, and one router will be an outside router, and we can have the clients, the taxpayers, connect to that. We might have to help them connect to it with their phones, but then they can print directly to our printers, and it'll be safe. So we won't have to use the portal, and we won't have to hand transcribe a lot of those documents.
No, very good. Thank you. That's great. These training videos I tend to watch every year, especially the military subtraction. I always forget the military income subtraction and the railroad retirement. So if you don't want to look at the tip sheets, you can watch the videos. Again, they're all short. Nothing's onerous. It's not like a 25-minute thing to watch through. Student loan credits in Minnesota, K through 12. These are some nice credits and subtractions that we got. When families come in, usually their weakness is they don't have the information, but if nothing else, try to educate them for the following year to save those receipts and save that information, because there's some nice reductions for people what they spend money on for things. So always refresh yourself on that. So again, a lot out here for videos. It depends how you want to learn. You watch videos, you can do the tip sheets, you can dig into the actual manual if you like to do that instead up here once it's available. Whatever way you like to learn, you can do that. And again, if you get stuck, I forgot, I lost my sheets on those Minnesota add-ons. Here's where they all are, right under the Minnesota webpage. So again, I highly suggest you have that nice little hardcore link right there, right next to the TaxAide links. So I always can open that up when I'm doing returns. So I always have that right in my reference, because again, up here at the very top, once you go into tax season resources, and I'll flip over there real quick, it helps you now more focused, not on so much on the training part, but now here's all the different support. It'll be the Minnesota manual will be right there for you. The scope will be right there. So everything is right there. And then as you need to get to them quickly, you can quickly reach and find them and refresh real quick what you're doing. I always find that when you're face to face with the taxpayer, sometimes they're like, "What are you doing?" It's hard to listen to a video when they're sitting there going, "This guy has no clue what he's doing." If he's listening to a video trying to figure this out, so I'll use the paper resources to figure out what I'm doing.
So Dave, also on the 1040 worksheets part there, and even the M1. So this year, instead of having a bunch of these forms all printed out and in folders that last year you'd go back to the back desk and pick these things out, I thought this year I'll just have the links here, and when that situation arrives, somebody's got the passenger vehicle, just go to this page, this web page here, and print that worksheet off, so we don't have a bunch of wasted paper and clutter around. So that's the intent of having those worksheets on this web page.
Perfect. Okay, that's kind of a high fly through on some of this, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any other questions on this. Anything I'm missing? Anyone want to show off any more pieces here? Any questions on any of this? It's a lot
at the lower part of this page, certification info, click on that sublink.
I'll go down further here.
Yeah. So I got, just to make it easier for you folks, if you can't remember where to go to do the testing and right down the certification, I've got the links to the websites.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Here's the resources for special topic training. Here we go. So here we go. All kinds of good stuff. So lots and lots of stuff online. And sometimes you don't click far enough down to see what's all out here. So I just encourage you to, if you're if you're sitting there instead of watching some boring football game, you can do this. I mean, I have to go to the Green Bay game. Somebody's going to make me go, but it won't mean much. But I can watch some of these videos while I'm watching the Green Bay game or something like that. So. But again, my thanks to the team that put all this Minnesota stuff together. It's such a, when you look at, people always talk about the Colorado resource tool. Well, I put this up against that. I mean, I know they have some calculators in there, but this is a wealth of information that if you're stuck on something in Minnesota, well, you'd be hard pressed not to find the answer. So thanks for everybody for the amount of work it takes to keep this up to date and keep it topical is amazing. It's unfortunately it falls on a few experts in District 6. So thank you for all the work you guys do on that. Let's see here. Anything else anybody wants to touch on before I go back to the certification stuff on these web pages? Anything else I'm missing that I should? One thing I do suggest is either when you do the LMS classes, always go through this volunteer portal link rather than trying to go on it directly. This one I find through the Chromebook takes me right there. And so I got to log in. Now the login always gets confusing because you got to use not your AARP login, but your regular email login to get in. And I'm not going to do that here because I'll probably get mad and throw the computer out the window. But the point is that it does work. And they did take away that little make sure you're not a robot type of thing. So that helps a lot. But I usually go there to get into it because some people had trouble getting to where those are. But we'll talk about that in a minute on the training. But that's where you get to it. Just go here and just go right to the volunteer portal or through the Minnesota webpage. Jim had a link down there for you on the bottom of that one as well. Anything else anybody wants to touch on before I go to the certification slides? Any other questions or anything? The world of online is with us here. I think less and less paper and more online. I do like, I'm a paper person. If I showed you a picture of my office here, you see lots and lots of paper on the desk. But I think the reality is all the stuff I have printed out is already outdated in a lot of cases. So not the best strategy I have going right now. So let's see here. Let me go over to stop sharing here on this one. And then we go back to my presentations here. Oops, let me go back. All right. So thanks for sticking with me on that. It's I just really try to get everybody to see as much as there is out there because I know that I get stuck on problems when I'm doing tax returns for the taxpayer, and I always forget. I kind of get in a panic mode. It's like, oh shoot, a waiver. Oh, what was that again? I should just stop a minute and go look out here real quick, find the video, or find not a video because that's embarrassing, but find that tip sheet or search it real quick. And information is out there. So let me go over here to get to presentation mode here, and we should be good. All right. What you all been waiting for, the certification process. As we know, TaxAide has some requirements, which is those LMS modules, those two classes, proficiency problems, including the state problems. IRS wants their test passed, and it's 13615 signed, and then getting all this done. We're shooting for a date of January 23rd, and that you start thinking the math. That's 3 weeks away from today, and Minnesota's not up yet. So you can feel the compression coming of trying to get stuff done. So I would really encourage you to do as much of your federal part of your problems as you can, and refresh as much as you can, then go back and pick up the Minnesota when it comes through, and you'll be ready to go. So let's go into first the TaxAide requirements. The LMS module, there's only 2 required modules this year: policy procedures, technology, and security. For the second year, you can test out. It really works slick. I had 3 because I take the LC test, but and what I would suggest is when you pass those classes, make sure it shows as 3, And
It'll show us 2 for most people.
most people will show us 2. And again, it's best access from the preset links on your Chromebook. But every now and then it doesn't track over. So make sure it shows completed on your thing when you do those. And if you get those knocked out now, it's just nice to have those out of the way and you don't forget about them. So keep that in mind. That works out pretty well. Here's our proficiency problems. Make sure you look for the errata here. Am I in presentation mode? It looks like I am. Hold a minute here. So the 4 problems we have for you, again, it's not to, these are not gotcha problems. It's just, we want you, and I'll send this out as a note in a little bit, but it's the 4 problems we're going to have you do is Davis, Egret, Fitzgerald, and Garibaldi. They have different things in them, but it's pretty straightforward. And make sure, again, you look for that errata for any changes that might be in these 4 problems. And also Minnesota, there's 1 change on the Fitzgerald problem. And I'll send this out in the note with these 4, with the requirements, but make sure that you change it to a para, police, and fire from what it was originally in there as, okay? But these are the 4 problems. And those would be, we're going to follow the same process as last year. Once you complete the Minnesota piece of it, when you get done with it, send it to this email with your practice lab username and password, and then that'll be assigned out to a reviewer. And basically, I kind of ask you, please take the time to treat it like it's a real return for real people. There's no typos or missing data. And if initial work needs to be done, make sure you get back to the reviewer. If you're stuck on something, please send me a note and say, I'm not getting to this answer or that answer, or why am I stuck on it? Instead of sending it in, you can send it in without it being complete or tying out to the worksheet answers. But the whole point of giving you the worksheet answers is try to resolve why you're not getting there. And I'll be glad to help answer those questions if you're stuck. But the whole point is trying to dig it out and find out where that answer is. But the reviewers will also point you in that direction if you can't figure it out. Submit it, and then they'll work you through it. But make sure you do rework the problem if they ask you to do that. Again, the answer matrix will be coming out. I'll send out the federal ones today. And once we have the Minnesota, I'll then send out the Minnesota answers. But make sure, before you submit that problem, make sure all the Minnesota pieces are done, as well as the federal. Any questions on that? All righty. IRS requirements. Lincoln Learn. Same, it looks a little different this year. But when you go click on the Lincoln Learn tab, I used the same login and password as last year, and that worked fine. And when you log in, this is what you get. Okay, so it takes you to this page right here, and it says either you've got the certification tests or your volunteer agreement. That's the page it'll land you on. And when you click on Take Certification Test, it'll take you to one of these 3 choices. I've got some questions from people saying, hey, where's the intake interview form? Where's this? What you got to do is click on the advanced test, and that'll take you to here. There's your volunteer standards, there's your intake, and there's your advanced test, okay? So that's the trick. People get here and say, well, wait a minute, I got the advanced, where's my intake and where's my, so you have to click on that one first, then it takes you to that step there. And work through them, and then it'll come back. Now, I was so happy this year. First time ever, I got them all right. I couldn't believe it. So that's I'm gonna save that book and frame it, I think. So I always recommend doing it this way. For each test, I read through the questions, put the answer in the book, then I put it in a summary in the very front. So when I go online, I just go zipping right along. Do this a lot. If I'm down on the answer, I check the retest questions. Just because if I'm thinking it's trying to trick me, sometimes the retest question sort of answers the question for you. My comment would be, if you don't pass the first time, please, please, please contact me or Jim or somebody before you do a second attempt. Because if you get blocked out in a second attempt, you're out. And then I have to move you back to a basic type of exam. So if you're going through the first time, and I've almost did this one time, I was putting in my answers and I realized I was off a line. I'm like, oh, I could have flunked this thing easily if I not realized I was off a line when I was keying them all in. So keep in mind, but this, I found this is easy. Just go through and work up all my answers before I go online, because some of those problems, as you remember, you have to go in there and actually do stuff in TaxSlayer to get the answer. So I find it's easier just to work through the whole problems, get all my answers in there, and then knock it out. And you can go in there, you can do, I'll go back, you can do the volunteer standards intake interview ahead of time if you want, and then save the advanced one. That'll just save it for you until you come back and do it. There is a way, I'm not going to go online, but if you're saying, you say you took the test and you closed it all out and you had 2 wrong, and you're like, gosh darn it, where's my 2 wrong? How did I get there? There's a way you can go back in and look at which 2 you missed. And it'll give you all kinds of guidance where to find the answers and all that kind of stuff. So if you get stuck on that, I'll send you how to do it. There's just a way of going in and looking at the transcripts and stuff, but there's a way to find your answers if you miss them. Now, when you're done with all your tests, I recommend it's easy to get that 13615. What you do is you sign the form, you click on the sign this form. Once your tests are done, you sign the form, you click on that button there, and it takes you to this screen. And I've already signed mine, so it shows which ones I passed. And what you do is you sign electronically, and then you download the signed form. It's going to be in a PDF format. What I would suggest when you download it is change the naming convention. So I put down like Halliday underline 13615. Then I send that PDF to Jim. Don't send it to me or Phyllis or anybody else. Just send it right to Jim, and he'll track those on the system. So when we actually submit our list of certified volunteers, we'll have that in a master file. And that master file helps the LCs as well, because LCs have to have the 1365s on site, and having it electronically, it's easy for us to be able to pull up. Say you have a guest coming into your site and all that. I've got your 1365 right there. So if you ever get audited by IRS, we've got all that electronically. So,
And Dave, I just want to clarify too, because I've had people think that they actually, when they download that and they print it themselves, they don't see a signature on there other than their printed name. That's what the signature is. So there's no need to download it, print it, hand sign it, then try to scan it and send it back to me. We really don't need a hand signature on there. This PDF that you get when you download it is all you need to do.
so they've made some nice changes to Link and Learn. It's pretty, I used to always have to find, where is this darn 1365? There it's, if you want to take the test, it's there. If you want the 1365, it's right there. So it's, when you log in, that's what this is the landing page when you log in. So it's really slick. They actually listened to some of the feedback and made some nice changes to it. Again, the one thing that throws people off, and I'll just do it one more refresher, is when you get in there and you click on the tests, you get this advanced or basic. Click on the advanced, then that'll take you to this page where you can see all your tests. So that's the sticking point that I see a lot of noise across national on that about where's these tests, and then they forget to click that one button. So with that, that's the certification piece. Any questions on that before I move into the next step of training?
Dave, just to confirm, we need to have all this done by January 23, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Let me go back to where's my presentation? Did I shoot? January 23rd is when we want this all done by. I thought I had that in here. Apologize for the bouncing around here, folks. Hang a minute. Oh, let me go. Close your eyes. I'm going to go back. Don't look at the screen. Come on, Dave, up there. Right there, yes. Complete everything by January 23rd. When I send out the note with the 4 problems, and I'll probably put the answer key right there with those 4 problems. I'll put this date on there. January 23rd is our date to target by.
Dave, maybe you want to make it 2026 that it might be due.
Oh, shoot. Oh, thank you. Oh, boy. You work so hard to edit things. I always goof up something. That's good. It keeps you humble. I like that. Thank you very much. Oh,
And
boy.
just to clarify, the reason for that is, from what I'm told, is that TaxAide goes into the certification system that we have to keep updated, and then pass along 1 week before the it takes a week for that information to get from TaxAide to the IRS. And technically, we cannot start doing taxes for people until the IRS has our certified information. So in order to allow for a week for that, we back off to the 7 days before that, the 23rd, 24th. So if you get your information in later than that, technically then you might not be certified for the first day or 2 or whatever of the tax season.
So a busy January is coming up on us here. So let's talk about where I get you some help here as we go. Oops, sorry, I'm moving through these screens here a little bit. Apologize. It's always a eye test here. Let's see. All right. So how do you start getting ready? We talked a little bit about all the information out there. It all has Minnesota supplements to it. So it's good to keep working through as many problems as you can just to learn and to refresh. But what kind of upcoming training do we have for you? All right. So over the next 2 weeks, we set up a separate original note that came out from Jim. We had January 16th as our morning training, in-person training, and then the afternoon was just going to be a workshop. On the January 16th session, I'm going to shoot to have, now we'll publish this once we get it all locked down, but we're going to go over the whole tax on tips, tax on overtime, the car loan deductions. We'll talk about the lump sum Social Security, and we'll probably make sure we hit the reconciliation of the Minnesota advanced payments. On the 14th, we have some other topics we need to cover. So on the 14th, and I will publish which topics we're going to cover when. In the morning, we'll have training. In the afternoon, we'll have an open workshop. Now, note and we'll publish these, but on the 14th, that's going to be at the South St. Paul Library. It's a brand new one, right across from the community center. And I'll put the address on there and everything else when I send out the reminders of these. But it's a beautiful facility, brand new. And they got a room we can use. Last year we used the room, I think, Wentworth, that's closed for remodeling. But this South St. Paul one's beautiful. On the 16th, we'll be at Thompson Park. And again, the afternoon workshops are just stop in. I got a problem with this. I can't figure this out. I can't give you the IRS answers, but I can sure lead you close to it on the test books. But on the problems you're having trouble, or even if it's on just other stuff you're trying to chase down, let us know. We'll work. Just stop in and we'll help you with them, or stay around and we'll be glad to help you. On January 20th, new this year, and thanks to a lot of my training team to doing this, we're going to do a second year training topics. The first 5 days of workshop training, you all remember, you're drinking from a fire hose and you're trying to get them through anywhere from basic Social Security entries to itemized deductions and all those things. So we miss things like Medicare waiver and there's some QR stuff and things like that. So there's things that QCDs, things that we just can't get to in the first 5 days of training. We've now got a second year training topics. We'll publish those. If you're interested, you can pop in, but this would be primarily for our second year second year counselors, just to make sure they're refreshed on those or get training on those topics. And thanks to Phyllis for really driving that through. We also then will have a workshop for new counselors on that day because they'll be scrambling. If you're still struggling after these two, you can pop in here and say, hey, I got a question here. But I will try to prioritize my new counselors. We're going to have 12 new counselors this year trying to get through this process. So a great recruiting this year and great amount of people coming in. So the encouraging thing is the more counselors we get, the more returns we can do and help more people. So it's kind of fun that we got this much interest coming in. I don't know if all will make it through. It looks like there's a sharp group coming in, so it's going to be good. But you can pop in on this. It's at South St. Paul Library on the 20th. But my primary focus is going to be second year and the new counselors. But as always, don't sit there and bang your head against the wall. If you have a problem, send me a note. I'll find somebody that knows that answer or try to help you as much as I can. So I don't want you to sit there and just get all mad and frustrated. So always reach out to me with any questions. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody can find it for me. So with that, I think that's all I had. Oh, one last thing. Unfortunately, there's going to be some homework because this in-person training, watching them do it, you're going to watch them because there's a lump sum video, and you can kind of fast forward through that if you like, but do the exercise on the Newell problem. You'll get it pretty quick. There's a December 4th video I'm going to send you a link to. It's the tax law updates. You'll see some of the slides you saw today, plus a lot more. You have to slog through it, but there's a lot in there. This December 11th TaxSlayer updates. It's got both how you enter into TaxSlayer on the new tax law, but also this problem of Georgia Martha Washington. I will send you the working pieces of it so you can actually work it in TaxSlayer yourself, but you also can follow along in this TaxSlayer updates how to input this problem in there. And I'll send you those links, and I'll send you this document out. So I know it's a lot, but if you can get through these videos and get through working the problem on lump sum and through George, it's so much easier to say, I can't get the answer, or I'm just really stuck. So when we do the live training, you're already at a certain point where, okay, I've got it in here. I got the right answer, but I'm really stuck on how this all makes sense, whatever. We can talk through that. If you're coming in without any knowledge, it's not going to help you in the training we're going to do live. So please try to take a shot at this and get the nice thing on the videos, you can fast forward, and when they get really bogged down in questions or something, you can kind of get past some of that. But there's also on these links for videos, there's also slides. So you can ask for the resources or you can ask for the videos, and you can look through those and take a look at them. So with that, I think that's all I got today. So any questions on all this? It's a lot. And again, I feel like I just touched the surface here a little bit for you, but hopefully this gets you at least a grounding point.
Yeah, Tim raised his hand. Tim?
Dave, are you covering the same topics on January 14 and January 16, or are those separate?
There'll be separate topics.
So we should come to both.
If you can, yeah. And I'll publish what's going to be covered each one.
Okay.
So that you can, not that it helps you, I mean, just so if you have a conflict or you can't get there, at least you can know what you're missing, or you can at least follow up on it. But yet, again, on the 16th, we're going to try to prioritize the tax law stuff and the lump sum and the, because that was one I think most people had on their calendar already. The 14th was an addition to pick up some more topics. So some people may have conflicts, but we'll try to prioritize the bigger items on the 16th and the other items on the 14th.
Thank you.
All important, but.
Dave, there's some things in the chat. One just real quick suggestion for folks, if you can have access to a second screen to use to hold on to your resources while you're doing work on your primary computer screen, that makes things a lot easier. Second, there's a suggestion that we encourage our clients who are picking up their paperwork early, and Jim, I know you've been pushing that a lot. Can we add in the overtime and tips worksheets as appropriate for those folks?
I thought of that, but another 1,500 pages per each one of those worksheets for probably 5 or 6 people that are going to use them. And I help a lot of time stuffing these envelopes. So I didn't think it was a worthwhile use of paperwork. I think we're just, and people aren't even going to understand that anyway until they come in and we probably do the interview with them and ask them, did you have overtime? Most people aren't going to know about any of that stuff. So we'll just print those
Jim,
out as needed.
maybe when clients come in to their appointment, can the facilitator inquire about, do you have this or that, and slip them a sheet at that time?
Yeah, that would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Or better use.
Yeah. They may still have to go back home and dig, but
Yeah, I got a feeling on some of those, if it really qualifies for those people and they're not going to have the information, we're going to have to say, all right, we're going to get through everything we can today and just come back, and when you figure this out, take this worksheet home and then come back and we'll finish you up later.
okay. Totally separate question. Back to our friends and family returns. Do they require a quality review?
Do they require it?
For us
No.
to send it? Yeah,
Is it recommended?
Yeah.
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, it's up to each person, and depending on how comfortable you are and feel with it, it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah, just remember when you're doing a friends and family return that it is outside the protection that you get from AARP TaxAide. So this is, you're doing this on your own and we're giving you the ability to file a return.
And the people up above us at the state level, I think it's just state, not regional, but they do look at how many friends and family are being done by an individual. And I know doing 10 of them doesn't raise a flag, but if it gets more than 10, I would recommend talking to your LC, or if you are an LC, talk to me. Just let us know that you're going to be doing more than that, and kind of why. So we haven't abused the system, but apparently it's been abused in other areas where people have done lots of friends and family for their high rises or senior centers that they live in. And the concern is that nothing's getting properly reviewed. So up to 10, don't worry about it. More than 10, just let one of us know.
That's it for the chat, I think.
Okay.
And those other live sessions are not going to be recorded. So we don't have the ability to do the workshops, recording them.
It looks like Fred had a question about any new sites for preparation.
Oh, sorry, missed that.
Are we opening any new sites? Not at this time. I don't plan to. I mean, it would be too late at this point to open up a new site anyway. As I've always said, if we get enough volunteers, it would be nice if we created an ad hoc group that could go around to a lot of these different places that are asking for help. And, if we get 12 new people this year, last year we had 6 new people, but we lost 10 people. So we had a net loss of 4 last year. So it really didn't happen last year, but we could be getting to close to that point. That's where the need is to, the demand, or people that we could really serve are these low income or older senior center people. Lots of need for it out there. Thompson, or the Cottage Grove site, most of you people don't, a lot of people don't work there, but that is temporarily moving from the Cottage Grove, Park Grove Library. It's going to be at the South Washington County Service Center, a few miles away from that, but still in Cottage Grove. But the library is still managing the appointment system at that location. So that's nice of them to do that.
There's a post in the chat saying Hastings Family Service would love to host an evening or Saturday low-income clinic.
Yeah, that's just add that to the 1 of 100 or 1,000 requests that we get for that. So I some of those I leave to the sites themselves. So like the Hastings Cottage Grove group for a number of years now has always done senior center at Newport and the the VA facility down there and another one. They've taken that on and they do it and they arrange the time to do it. And that's great with them. And then the South St. Paul Thompson Park group, because Thompson Park is closed down for the last week in March. They've been doing 2 senior centers in South St. Paul, which is nice of them. So, and the Marion Park group does 1 site at the end of the tax season. So we can do that site by site too, if we get the volunteers to want to do that.
Another suggestion on the chat is looking at literally adding an extra day to a weekly commitment at a particular site. So
Yeah, you know, there's tons of demand requests that I've heard for nights or weekends. If we wanted to pick up a Saturday site, we would be swamped. So we need to have a facility and a group of people that are willing to do a Saturday site somewhere. We used to do a long time ago an evening site 2 days a week at Conway Community Center, and that was always popular. But we quit at COVID and we've never re-energized that one. And quite frankly, I think it's hard to get volunteers to come out in the evening in the wintertime to do taxes.
okay.
I just got a couple of closing comments. One, again, thank you for your flexibility on some new dates and some movement around of things. I appreciate that a lot. 2, I want to thank you guys as experienced counselors. As the new counselors come in to your sites, you do a great job of taking them under your wing and really helping them along, because the training is the best I can do and best they can get the speed on. But it's really the power of the knowledge transfer is you guys helping them get in, get comfortable, doing those interviews, shadowing them. And I guess what I'd ask is when they look a little frazzled, say, hey, did Dave cover this? I don't think he covered Medicare waiver. Let me help you with that. Or have you seen this before? Have you seen that? And they say, well, I've seen it once, but I don't really remember. I'm not comfortable with a Schedule C Uber driver. Just jump in and help them, because as much as we train, it's until you live it a couple of times, it's really tough. So I really appreciate all you guys doing that. And that's really the retention value, is people feel if they know they're being helped, they come back. And with 12 new ones coming in this year, it's the front end loading that can help with getting more sites and more appointments and more things. So more we can get those 12 up to speed and retained, all the better we're going to be. So thank you for all you do to get those people comfortable and feeling valued. And it really makes a difference. So thank you for that.
I think last year we booked our appointments at an hour and 15 minutes apart. I think we're going to go back to booking them an hour apart. You know, some sites, it was kind of had too many gaps in there. So we're going to do that. We'll probably go back to 5 periods in a day versus 4. I think that we had, anyway, we're going to add 1 more period a day because we're cutting them back to an hour appointment. And if we do get all these new people, some of the sites we can perhaps fit in another preparer, another reviewer, so we can beef up the staffing per day at the sites to try to get some more appointments in also.
Well, very good. If no other questions, then I'll send out the problems and the answer key today, and then I'll get that homework out to you, and then we'll publish here next week or so what's going to be covered on the 14th, what's going to be covered on the 16th, so you know, and you can hopefully make it to both. And again, whatever you do, if you get stuck, don't bang your head on the wall. Okay. Just ask for help and we'll be glad to help you where we can. And, I get frustrated once in a while when I get the wrong answer. I'm like, how did I miss this one? But it's, usually it's, if I ask the question, sometimes I get the point of, did you look at the 4012 or you look at the 4491? And it's always good training. So I always forget to do that sometimes. So always think about that too. There's a lot of resources out there to grab stuff. So with that, I'll not.
Dave, one other quick thing for everybody. I'm assuming you're going to be attaching the slides that you showed today to your email that's coming out, or a link to it or whatever.
Jim, how do you want to handle it? I can definitely make it a PDF and send it out.
Why don't we?
Because you have the recording for this too, right?
Yeah. Why don't you make it a PDF? We'll put it in the Google Drive and then we'll share a link from the
Perfect.
Google Drive to this so that we're not just cluttering up mailboxes with big PDF files.
Perfect.
And I'll send out a link. I know those of you that are here aren't going to need it, but we recorded this and there's a few people, so I'll have a link to this recorded video ready for tomorrow.
Great.
I just have to change that due date to 2026 before I save the file and I'll be all set. Jeez.
That's no fun.
Oh gosh. Excellent.
Dave, this was great. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate you all attending. Thanks for your flexibility. This is really, it's, as you can see, it's a lot coming at us this year and we're all going to have to kind of rally around helping each other with these new things. So thank you much.
Oh, hey, Dave, do you want what? Are you still interested in one more person helping to do reviews of problems?
I am. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. Yes. I do need one more reviewer to help us review your problems. So who wants to, if you're really interested in doing that, I try to reach out to many people that I thought might be interested, but if you didn't get a contact from me and you're like, hey, I'd like to review problems and give feedback and put them under the squeeze a little bit, let me know real quick and I can get you on that list. And again, you just have to review one problem for maybe 15 to 20 people. And it's just giving them feedback, making sure they did all the entries right and stuff. So
One final question before we go for everybody, on signing the volunteer agreement and sending it to Jim. I believe you will need to send a copy, your own copy, attach it to an email to Jim. It doesn't automatically go to him once you sign it.
You will download it. It'll go to wherever your downloads go to, and then start an email and then click that as an attachment and send to me.
oh, thank you for that clarification.
And LMS stuff, you don't have to send us notifications on that. I get automatic reports and updates from that from the portal system about who's completed what training. So
And Phil does a great job of tracking completed on the problems too. So the only thing you have to manually do is send that PDF. Good point. With that, thank you for spending the time. Stay warm. And wish us luck on the new counselor for new employees. New counselor. All right. Thanks much, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.